But our responsibility is to maximize our own God-given skill sets, make the best of them. That's all we can ask of. That is the greatest gift a human being can give themselves. You get everything out of your God-given ability. And then when you do stand in front of a mirror and you're like, hey, ask yourself one question. Did you do your part? And you answer yes to that. I did. I got everything out of it. But there's nothing more you can ask yourself. And wherever you ended up, you're excellent. You're great. You should have peace with that.
Well, welcome everyone to this next very special interview. Today, I get to introduce a man who I have watched over the years play football. I have watched him on ESPN and was just lucky enough to connect with him and have him on the interview today. So today I get to introduce you to the legendary Merril Hoge. And let me tell you a little bit about him. He's listening. I'm going to brag on him a little bit, but guided by his life philosophy, find a way. Merril played in the NFL for 8 years with the Pittsburgh Steelers and Chicago Bears, is a graduate of Idaho State University, played running back, worked at ESPN for over 20 years, and what we're going to dive into, as well as survived improper care of head trauma that ended his football career. He's fought through cancer, open heart surgery, and all these successes and challenges have helped him inspire others and persevere in the face of adversity while continuing to drive towards success. Now, I'm going to put his full bio in the show notes, so please go look at that. Go to YouTube. You'll see his full bio where you can connect with him. But along with being heavily involved with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, the American Heart Association, Safety in Sports, he is also an author of a book called Brainwashed, along with Find a Way, 3 Words That Changed My Life. Merril, I can't thank you enough again. Welcome to the interview. Welcome to the show.
Well, Matt, it's always an honor, quite honestly. So thanks for having me, and I look forward to the time that we have together.
Absolutely. Now, I'll speak at first, personally from a, Pittsburgh Steeler perspective. I'm a Bronco fan. You can see the helmet in the back behind me right now. I grew up in Denver, born and raised, but have always been a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, and don't really know why, except that a lot of University of Colorado Buffaloes seem to find their way to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it was a culture thing. And so I think naturally my affinity for football followed on to Pittsburgh just because of that same thing. So I just love the culture and this kind of who the Pittsburgh Steelers are. So so fun.
Well, you don't pick a bad organization, and I think that your instincts are right. It's I don't care what we talked about, what company, what business field you're in, everything starts with leadership. Yep. The top and the principles and the foundation that is established, the consistency and the structure. It's not that difficult. People make it difficult, but they have been consistent throughout the years, and their principles are consistent. Their structure is consistent, whether it was the chief, Mr. Rooney, or Art. And that's why I think that organization really stands out and is special.
Well, and I want to dive into that a little bit, but before we go there, I'm just curious, what's one of the greatest memories you had from playing in the NFL?
Well, I honestly, I think my top 5 are about experiences and relationships and people I met and their impact on me. I could give you a book of Chuck Noll. He's the greatest man I've ever met. He was the greatest leader, his greatest teacher. He was a great role model. He was just an incredible human being. Walter Payton, indirectly impacted my life. And then when I got to Chicago, directly impacted my life and has left me with things I still resonate with me today, principles I use today. And I think of him often because of things that he did for me. And I'm grateful for that. That's why when I speak, I always say, I try to start out with, I'm a product of a lot of people. People challenge me, people inspire me, I find hope in people. And I do that for a reason, because without people, I wouldn't be where I am today. But that being said, everybody's responsible for their journey. Nobody did the work for me. Nobody's going to do the work for you. Nobody's going to do the work for other people. Nobody wants your dream or goal as much as you do. And you need to realize that, and then realize what tools you do have, the gifts you do have, and how they can be applied in the proper manner to get to where you want to go. Everybody wants to start something. Everybody wants to stop something. So pick one and start doing it. and you're going to be the one that does it. Nobody's going to start it for you or stop it for you. And taking ownership in your life at some point, the quicker you learn how to do that, the more powerful and important I think your life becomes, because you start to, the strength that you build within yourself and the journey that you take, you can impact others on that path. And I just think that's why I say life's the greatest team game that we all play. Football's the greatest team sport, but life is the greatest team game.
Yes. I want to go back real quick to college, because you didn't play at a massive school, right? But you had the opportunity to play, in the NFL. Talk to me about like why Idaho State, and what did you have to do to get that opportunity, first of all, but then be ready for getting drafted to the NFL?
Well, this is how I think a part of everybody's journey. There's going to be certain breaks that, go your way, don't go your way. People get dealt a hand in life, and we didn't get the choice of what hand we got dealt, but we do get the choice of how we handle that hand. So when you look at what happened to me, the things that happened to me actually in high school, I think I only played about 15 games in 4 years of from my sophomore year or my ninth grade year to my senior year. I probably played about 16 games because I was hurt. Had all kinds of injuries. I played like 5 games my sophomore year. I got hurt / kicked off the team / quit the team. That was that was a me problem.
Yeah.
And then my junior year, I just was hurt all the time. And then my senior year, I ended the season getting hurt in our playoffs. And so I didn't have I wasn't highly recruited by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, actually, I got the second scholarship. I was the second in line to get the scholarship at Idaho State. They had somebody else that they preferred. Actually, 2 other people they preferred. And both of them turned them down. And they went to like University of Washington and some other places. So they went to bigger schools.
Yes.
And so they deferred to me. And one of the guys that really I think was significant in helping me, I don't know if this name will ring a bell, but Dirk Cutter was the head coach at Tampa Bay for about 10 years ago. He coached in the National Football League for a long time as a coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons for a long time. He was head coach at Arizona State. He actually built Boise State and brought them to the start of where they became. He was the foundation there as the coach. So he is a fabulous coach. He was my high school coach. And his dad was the head coach at Idaho State. Or he was a coordinator, at the time. Yes. And it was really his advocacy for me that ended up me getting that scholarship, because I got an offer. I didn't get another offer. And my goal in high school, because I was actually, you got to go back. This is in like 1983, so you have to paint pictures of 1983 because people use the information and the resources that exist today. Like there's all of this footage and, resources, and you can see, you're in Denver. I can see somebody in Denver who's a top high school kid. I can just Google that and check that out. Well, that didn't exist. None of that existed back then, so people to get recognized and noticed, it was almost like relationships, it had to be someone in your house, or you had to be so good that, people did hear about you, but it's clearly not like today. So it was hard to get recognized and noticed, especially with the limited things that I had done in high school. And it was Dirk who told his dad, he's like, listen, just give him a shot. This is when they were trying to select 2 other guys. And so they deferred to me, but what happened is like, I didn't care where I went. Like I wasn't a kid that went, boy, I want to play at Georgia. I want to play at Penn State. I want to play at BYU or Boise State. I was never like that. I was like, I just want to play. I just remember thinking, I don't care where I go. I just want to play, because that's the most important thing. You could be the greatest football player in the world and you'd be on the sideline of some of these schools. Correct. And you never get a chance to play, and you get lost in the numbers. And so I really was an advocate about, I want to go play. And my goal was to, wherever I went, I would start as a freshman, which I ended up doing. But I only got one offer, and I took it. And
so good.
And I went to Idaho State, and I was and actually put me last on the depth chart when I got there. So I didn't start out as the starter. I started out as like I don't know. I didn't even know that there was like 10th string. I was 10th string when I got to Idaho State.
That's wild. Well,
Yeah.
I think that speaks to the belief that they had in you, right? Your head coach had in you, and to speak to and to say, give him a shot, give an opportunity, and the power of relationships, right? And I imagine it wasn't just, oh, he's a nice guy. It's you had some intangibles and tangibles in place that your coach knew you could make an impact at that next level.
Dirk Cutter knew that. Listen, I used to go get the keys from him. Since he was my coach, I'd go get the keys from him on a Friday night, and I'd go work out. I made that choice over going with my other buddies and go up on the hill with a keg of beer and drink all night. And I chose. That was a choice that I made as a kid. I wasn't going to drink. I wasn't going to do anything that could erode everything I'm working on.
Yes.
And I had a control of that. And I was smart enough as a kid to realize that there's no benefits to alcohol. There's no nutritional benefits. There's no physical benefits. I remember as a kid going, I've never heard anybody stand in front of an audience and talk about taking drugs and alcohol, and had they not done that, they never would have been successful. But I've heard a lot of them talk about how it ruined everything and it destroyed everything. And so as a kid, I was like, I'm not going to do that. I ain't that good. I go, I don't have room for error. I go, I gotta be as good as I could. I gotta get everything out of my God-given abilities to get to where I'm going. And I don't need to add any extra baggage in my life. And I was smart enough as a kid, there's a lot of things that I learned from other people. Aristotle, Walter Payton, things that I heard from Walter Payton, things that really inspired me, and helped me build my patterns and habits that eventually helped me build my character. And that's why I'm so passionate about thanking the people that have contributed to my life. And that's what I love about speaking. I try to help contribute to other people's life. Doesn't mean what I say will resonate with people, but it might. Right. And if it doesn't, that's okay, because there's all different ways, that people get inspired and then apply their motivation to things. But if there's something I can share that does move me. And it's one I'm most passionate about speaking, is when somebody comes up to you and goes, man, I needed that, and this helped me. Because that's what speaking is about. Speaking is not about, I tell people that if I get done speaking and they're talking about me, I did a really bad job. But if they're thinking about themselves and where their strengths are and what they can do, what they take ownership of, I'm like, okay, that's a home run, because it's about them. It's not about me.
Yes. I agree 100%. I think that's that power of speakers, of coaches, of just people, the right people you surround yourself with. They get you thinking about, like, how do I get a little bit better based on what that person said, whoever that is.
Yeah, good point.
It makes you feel good, right? It's about everyone else.
Yeah,
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I'm a more of a belief of that now than, listen, as your journey goes, your scope changes, your perspective widens, and those things I've enjoyed on the journey. I don't regret everything that's happened to me in my life has helped me be where I am today, and I don't want to waste a second, in regret. I don't waste time on fear, because fear is temporary, but regret is forever. It's better to build a life of resiliency than a life of regret. That's why taking challenges and testing things out and going after things are important in life. Because you get down the road one day and you're like, oh, it's too late. Yeah. I don't ever want to say it's too late, or I should have done that, and for the most part, if I thought about my life to this point, I actually have only one regret, but I've never let that regret has paved the way so I never made that mistake again. Yes. But I know how regret is. You can't redo it. You have to live with it, and that's why fear is temporary. So go after things, attack things, change things, start things.
Well, I think to your point, then along the way, you're going to have these little decisions you need to make, and maybe it's alcohol or drugs, maybe it's getting in the gym late at night, maybe it's staying late at work, maybe it's spending more time with loved ones. We have all these little decisions in front of us that we need to make with that kind of grander vision in mind, right? Or not even grander vision, but just like, don't want to live that life with regrets, right? Don't want to look back.
No, Matt, I say all the time that everybody is one choice away from a different life. Your choices that you make, And that doesn't mean bad. I mean, I look at it as positive. Choices that you make move forward, can be for a powerful, productive life. Doing sure there could be, one of regret, but you
Right.
try to think of more of in a positive way, that the choices that we make, the patterns we develop, the habits that we instill in our lives, that's where you live by what you trust yourself,
Yes.
trust your principles, your habits, your patterns and your choices and how you go about that. And then that helps you grow as a person and evolve.
Yes. Well, so when you look at college, right? So you make that transition. Obviously, you start right away. You're 10th on the depth chart. You moved up quickly, apparently, and then to number one. And
I got a lot of people got hurt.
it's a lot.
I just got to be honest, man. A lot of people got hurt. And listen, I was beating people out. There was some people I knew I was better and would be better than the people that were in that room. But it was going to take me one practice at a time, one rep at a time. And some guys did get hurt, but I mean, I eventually started to beat people out because of what I could do that they couldn't do on a consistent basis.
Yes. This is, I think, so interesting, right? Were you super uber disciplined in college?
Yeah.
And how did you, I think this is important, right? Because again, it doesn't matter if you're an athlete or in business or wherever, but we all have those choices of putting these routines in place, the discipline in place. And, I've cheated on that stuff and been like, I'm going to go to the gym, and then I don't go to the gym. And we do these little things along the way. How did you maintain a level of discipline throughout college? And then obviously it translated to, NFL and other areas of your life. How did you maintain that? The self-talk when you wanted to stop or maybe take a day off. How did you work through that? Because it's, I think, a really challenging thing to do.
Well, I go back to, I had no room for error, and I knew that. So I could never give it a break. Now, in a way, that was a mistake. As I learned later in life, there's 3/3 to perfect health. And when you think about your routine, when people may be struggling, let's talk about mental health for a second. You could kind of find where your problem exists if you just take inventory of these 3/3. Okay, one is nutrition, one is exercise and activities, and the other is rest. And that's about 90%. That's your life. Those three things, and you look through those and how you manage those, how you grow those, and evolve in those. Really can tell you how you are physically and mentally and emotionally from that perspective. So I mentioned Walter Payton earlier. I heard this as a kid, and this became a principle in my life. It was one of the most profound things I'd ever heard a human being say at the time, and I was a kid. But and I'll assume everybody knows who Walter Payton was, but when he put this tape it was called Winning in Life, and the tape was called, he was going to talk about charity work, family life, and how he trained. And so, when I was a kid, he was already my favorite player, and I was I already heard about these things, and I heard that, and this was always fascinating to me because they would say he's not the biggest, he's not the strongest, he's not the fastest, he's just the best. As a kid, that's that's so confusing because I'm wait a minute, everybody bigger, stronger, faster, and he's better than me. How is that possible? He's the best in the world? He's better than all the best in the world? Well, in this interview, in this tape I got, I didn't realize it was an interview process. I don't know what I was expecting. It wasn't an interview process. But the first question the interviewer asked him, what makes you better than everybody else? And I'm like, that's what I want to know. I'm like, that's
You're
what I
reading
would
my
ask.
mind, interviewer.
And after he asks him, he said something as profound as I had ever heard a human being say. He paused for a second, and he looked right at him, and he said, I want it more than they do. Every single day of the week. He said, you see, in the off season, when I go run that dirt hill at 7:00 in the morning, I want it more than they do. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. He goes, during the season, when there's 65,000 fans in that stadium over there, cameras not rolling everywhere, I want it more than they do. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Now, at Sunday at 1:00 when you get to see me, oh, you better believe I want it more than they do. Man, I hit pause. I'm like, I can do that. I can do that. In fact, there's not a soul that's going to ever listen to this or hear this that can't do that. Do you know what that is? And I'm not talking about wanting it. Okay, wanting it's the easy part. Okay, it's that relentless commitment of every single day. That is a mindset. That is a pattern, and that is a choice. Is it easy? No, it's not. Okay. But I will say this. If you start doing it one day and make that commitment that I'm going to be relentless and commitment every single day you make that commitment, the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And then it becomes a tool belt of life where you can pull it out and attack it and put it to anything that ever comes your way. And I did that as a young kid. I was like, when I heard that, I was like, man, that's exactly, So going back to those times when this was at night, I have a choice to go with these guys on Friday up to the mountain with the truck and a keg of beer. Yep. But I went to Dirt Cutters and I got the keys to the gym and I went and worked out on a Friday. And that's what I chose to do because I knew I was responsible for my journey. Even as a young kid, I didn't know that as much as I know now because I just didn't have that knowledge then. But that commitment that I had made to the goal that I had put up that I will play in the National Football League, I committed to myself and I committed to the work and I committed to it every day. And I lived by that. And I probably should have taken some rest. And I'm not saying go up on have a keg and go up there. I'm not saying take that choice. But I never had a day off and, really perfect health. You need that rest. I mentioned rest. I mean,
yes,
that's something in my life I've had to actually massage and add more into. And the more I've gotten better at that, the better actually the other two categories are, which is fascinating. Understanding that, I think sometimes when you get in that mindset, you think, oh, rest is dangerous. That's weakness. And actually it's not. It's about being smart and helps you maximize those other two areas.
Yes.
Took me a long time to figure that out though. It took me a long time to figure it out.
Well, true. Right. And, we talk about, especially athletics and business, right? We hear about burnout. We hear about athletes burnout, core people burnout, parents burnt out, like all these different things. And the importance of like resting and recovering. And I mean, there's lots of different tools you can use to accomplish those things. One of them, sleep. Another one is taking a day off. Another one is, meditation. Another one is getting an infrared sauna. I mean, there's like thousands of probably different things you can do to get that rest and recover.
Exactly.
It's become more mainstream now. This taking care of our bodies, taking care of our minds.
Yep. Well, when you do that combination, it's a product. Your body. It's fascinating. People forget like this is attached to this. So if we're taking care of this, it's taking care of this too. And blood flow, oxygen, proper nutrition, proper rest, always critical to this brain. And that is our greatest weapon. It is our most valuable tool. And that is actually our greatest challenge. When I speak, I get to a point where I let people know we all have the greatest tool known to mankind. Everybody has it. Okay. It's this right here. It's our mind. It's our brain. The key though, do you control your mind or does your mind control you? And this is physically, scientifically, this is actual truth. The people that can control their mind, okay, so they stay within the scope of what they control, nothing else, and they focus on stuff. There's nothing a human being cannot overcome, and there's nothing a human being cannot become. And that really starts with a person's thoughts, and you translate those thoughts into words and goals and having visuals. Like visuals are a big component. I've been a big component in my life.
Yes.
I started doing it at age 12 by a challenge I got from a teacher. She goes, write your goals down. Everybody needs to have goals. Pin them up in your room. It's where you start and end your day. And I'm actually, first time I heard it, I was like, great idea. But I got a problem. I got a little brother and I put anything in my room, it gets taken down. That's why I used to pray diligently. Every night he would disappear.
Yes.
Because I wanted my own bedroom. But then I started to go a little further with that. I was like, God, you know what? Here's what I would want in my bedroom then. Because I'd never seen this before. I go, I want a wall of cork. I was like, because I got all kinds of goals. And I eventually got a bedroom actually. And when I did, I had my dad make me a wall of cork.
Did you?
So I had half a wall of cork in my bedroom, and that's when I started putting visuals up. That's the first time I put up. I was playing the National Football League. I'd mentioned that I made a commitment to that goal. When I pinned that goal up, I just couldn't help but revisit. See, like everybody when people go, hey, what are you going to do when you grow up? What are you going to be? I'd say, well, I'm going to play in the National Football League. One of four things was always said to me right away. Oh my gosh, you know how hard that is? Do what the odds you playing in the NFL are. Oh, son, don't put all your eggs in a basket. We wouldn't want you disappointed. Or it was impossible. And I actually, when I put that goal up, I was I was revisiting all those things. I let those actual thoughts really overwhelm me and consume me. And I was playing the National Football League for a moment. It was just like words on a wall. And I was like, and I'm like, wait a minute. I didn't put that goal up to be words on a wall. I put it up there because I want to do it. And that was like a first moment of truth in my life. I was 12 years old, and I was like, no, I committed to that goal. Going back to where this all started, I committed to that. I committed to me, and I made an agreement with that person in the mirror. And I didn't want to let that down because I made that commitment. And then, I'd hear things like a Walter Payton. That added to the tool belt. I didn't have that particular mindset. I just was like, okay, I'm committed to it. What does that mean? And when I heard him, the everyday thing, I'm like, oh, that's it, boy. Principle of life.
Yes.
Okay. Because that can be applied to anything and everything. And there's not a human being that can't do that. I mean, I used to think Walter Payton has special genetics, and that's why I got the tape. I go, oh, it's going to be so disappointing. He's going to go, well, I have a special gene that nobody else has, and that's why I'm great. And then I'm like, oh, this is terrible. I mean, how do you do it? He's no different than any. Okay, was his skill? He did have a great skill set. Sure, he had a great skill set. But our responsibility is to maximize our own God-given skill sets. Make the best of them. That's all we can ask of. That is the greatest gift a human being can give themselves. You get everything out of your God-given ability. And then when you do stand in front of a mirror and you're like, hey, ask yourself one question. Did you do your part? And you answer yes to that. I did. I got everything out of it. But there's nothing more you can ask yourself. And wherever you ended up, you're excellent. You're great. You should have peace with that.
Yes. Oh, I love that so much. What a powerful statement by Walter Payton. And if anyone is watching this, listening to this right now, and you don't know who Walter Payton is, please go research the guy.
Yeah, he was phenomenal.
What a story. What was the biggest difference between playing in college and the NFL?
The IQ of the game. Not even close. People always talk about speed, irrelevant. Speed is third, actually.
Really?
It starts first and foremost, the overall intelligence of the game, from schematics, scheming, the structure of everything, the execution, the details of every single player. It is, like going from high school to college, that's a big jump. I'd say that's like going from first grade math to senior in high school, okay? Then when you go from college to the National Football League, that's like going to astronomy or some out of some
degree I
just
can't
some
pronounce.
Stuff like place that you're like, whoa, it ain't no doctors outside that. It ain't no master. I mean, like way beyond that. It's such a massive leap, and that's the biggest challenge, And then it's a quicker game than it is fast, but speed is a factor too. Because and the reason I mention that is, in college, the field is different, and most fans don't know that. The width and length are the same, but the hash marks in college are very wide. And so that's why college is played on the perimeter. And that's why most of the time my guy's better than your guy. We're going to beat you. My guy runs a 4.4. You run a 4.6. We're going to outrun you. When the NFL, they move the hash marks in the middle, and my guy's as good as your guy. Okay, now we play in the middle. Nobody's outrunning everybody because my guy runs a 4.4, so is my guy. Okay, my speed is as good as your speed. So now it's about strategy and quickness. The ability to start, stop, and redirect. And then, yes, if you have speed, I'm not minimizing speed by any stretch, but it is third on the list. If you can't do these other two things I talked about, your speed is irrelevant. Let's say you're dumb as a box of rocks, you have no agility, but you got speed. And you ain't going to make it. Okay, what position you play?
Yes.
You have to have a combination of the other two, and number one, you have to have that and have that intel. And that intelligent aspect is not just the doing your job right and having great instincts. Part of it is having good instincts of the game. An understanding not just your job but everybody else's job. Because the more you understand the big picture, man, the more effective you can be. I remember my rookie year, I was overwhelmed, man. They'd snap the ball. I'm like, man, how many players are out here? I'm like, geez, there are like 50 players out here. I'm like, there's like a big old blur. I'm like, geez, Christmas. By the time I got to my second year, it just slowed down. I had worked so hard I came out of a college that was a pro-style system anyway, the Big Sky at that time. One thing advantage I had going to Idaho State, I played in a pro-style system, so it was the only conference in the entire country that was
Wow.
doing this. I mean, it ain't like today. Like, okay, everybody is used today where everybody throws the ball all over the place. Man. Shoot, Oklahoma, they ran the ball. Georgia ran the football. Alabama ran the football. Nobody was throwing the football. BYU was the only one, and they would upset everybody because they'd have that passing game and nobody knew how to defend it because nobody executed it. Nobody.
Yeah.
And if you had a whole month like BYU, you have all these upsets,
Yes.
Well, we were doing what BYU was doing, but even at more of a pro style level. So when I got to the NFL, I had a good grasp of that. That was a big advantage for me. Like, that's why I started on third down, because I knew blitzes, I knew fronts, I knew coverages. I did everything but throw the ball. And I knew what the offensive lineman had to do. I knew where our quarterback had to go. I knew our adjustments and everything. And that was the biggest advantage I had as a rookie, is I never made a mistake. And this is true in any business. My coaches trusted me. I was the only guy that they could put on third down, and I wouldn't make a mistake.
Yes.
I would, and not only would I not make a mistake, but I would counter if somebody else made a mistake and adjust to things, because I knew the whole concept of things. And I did. I just, the one thing I can say about myself that was elite, I had great instincts. I just great instincts about the game. I seldom, I can't even think, and I could think one play in 22 years of football that they called the play in the huddle, and I didn't know what I was doing. Only one time. It was against the New Orleans Saints. It was only one time. And we could do a whole podcast on that actual game, actually, in that whole year. But it was one time. And what we still laugh about to this day, because Bubby Brister was our quarterback, and everybody's talking about, oh, he's not the smartest guy, He's the only guy in the huddle that knew what everybody else is doing, because I wasn't the only one. There's like half of us are like, what? I ain't heard. When's the last time I called that play? I'm like, where do I go? Where do I land? And Bubby's like, go here, go there.
Wow.
And we were in the locker room going, okay, the only guy that they would say and forget that play would be Bubby. And he's the only one that knew the dang play.
That's funny.
Yeah.
But
that was a big advantage for me in the game. And that's why I always emphasize it, because if you struggle in that department, whatever athletic ability you do have gets reduced.
Yes.
It's hard to maximize it if your IQ is not high and your instincts aren't high.
But it sounds like, assuming you've got decent instincts, right? Just like an athletic ability of some sort, although you wouldn't be at that level anyway, no matter what sport you're playing. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like you decided just to study, and like pour yourself into like increasing your IQ on the playbook and doing those things and talking to people. Like, is that true? And how did that unfold for you, especially rookie year, but then, the rest of your career? What did that look like?
Studying is important, but learning is important too. Okay. What I mean by that is, like, you can study so much, but then you can learn by what somebody else does or doesn't do.
Yeah.
And that combination of stuff, like, I'll tell you this, the thing that taught me the most and the quickest was playing against brilliant players and smart players, catching things that, where they slipped up. I remember the game I was playing against the Cleveland Browns, and they had Chip Banks, outside linebacker, and Clay Matthews, senior. Okay. Clay Matthews is one of the smartest football players ever to play. One of the best ever. I can't remember if he's in the Hall of Fame. I don't know if he is, but he should be. Anyway, we would come out of the huddle, and every time we'd come out of the huddle, him and, we got two linebackers working together, and he'd always go, chip, sweep here. And I'm like, and it was a sweep. He'd go, like, chip, trap back your side. And I'm like, it was a trap. I'm like, I go back to the huddle, and I'm like, that's the dang, man, he knows every play, like he's in the huddle. And so, and I would actually stand in the huddle and listen, and I go, can he hear the play? And I'm like, gosh, no way he hears that play. So what we had done, when we ran the football, we shifted our alignments a little bit. So, like, if we were going to sweep, we kind of cheated up and out.
Yes.
And so we could get to the linebacker and get to the outside. If we were going to trap inside, we kind of moved our alignments in so we could get to the proper alignment, blah, blah, blah. Well, this goes on through this game, and I am just like, this guy is killing us. He knows everything about us. He knows it. I mean, I don't know how he knows. I don't know how he knows it. Well, it was about the third quarter. We're on the 20-yard line. We just had a TV timeout. We come out, and we're going to run a 28 sweep. So I cheated up and out, and he made a mistake. He goes, Chip, cheated up and out, coming my way. I'm like, my alignment. He knows by my alignment. I'm like, oh my gosh, I never changed it. Every time I did a 28 sweep, I lined up. So that changed everything. I'm like, man, from then on, I would cheat out and up. If I was running the trap backside, I'd cheat out and up if I was running the route. I mean, I constantly was changing things up. You could never get a beat on me from that day on. But it just like, bam. Oh my God. That's how detailed that cat was.
Correct.
Like he watched he knew. And I'm like, man, it was an awesome. I learned a lot that day. I learned a lot that day. I was like, man, it taught me, like I could play a game and I could tell you if that linebacker is just a shade outside our tight end, he's coming. I could tell you if his right foot was back a half a step, just 2 inches back, I'm like, oh, he's coming, or he's dropping. I mean, you could almost do. That's how good you get to the game. You can get at the game, and that's when the game slows down, and that's what I love most about the game.
Yes,
quite honestly, the combat is awesome. But the strategy and all those instincts and the senses behind that, being able to apply those in a game are what I loved about the National Football League and still love about the NFL. And that's why when I watch college tape, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is boring. I'm like, geez, they run the same 2 coverages all game. I'm like, oh geez, okay.
Yes.
And in an NFL drive, they change coverage every down.
It's a different level of sophistication as you move up.
It's enormous.
It's so interesting. So I want to take this from like a leadership perspective too, right? Because you said a couple of things that stuck out to me. Pretty much everything you said has stuck out to me, Merril, which is we have a lot to talk about. We'd be here forever if I started covering everything you said. But one thing that stuck out to me is like you said, the better you understand the bigger picture, the more effective you're going to be as an athlete, as a leader, things like that. Do you believe that to be true, whether I'm a, player on a high school team, a college team, an NFL team? Is the same thing true there that it is in business? Like the better I understand the bigger picture, the more effective leader I'm going to be?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there and a lot of value with what you're saying. And I can look at this in 2 different ways. I'll give you 2 different things. So let's use sports, for example. So I go to a lot of clinics, or I used to, I don't do as many now. But I always start off with going, did everybody play youth football? Because everybody's a youth football coach. So it's mostly youth football, a little high school. And everybody, yes. I go, did anybody get to call plays when they were kids? Nobody raised their hand. Mm-hmm. I go, how many people would have liked to have called plays, offensively and defensively? Everybody raises their hand. I go, let me ask you this. How many of you let your kids call plays? Nobody raises their hand. I'm like, so tell me something. Okay. You experienced youth football, okay? You know what you kind of missed in the game and what would have helped you in the game, because what I'm getting at is the best way for you to develop young players and have them enjoy the game and understand the game, have them take ownership of the game, okay? And that is be responsible for not just calling the plays. I mean, how do you line up and get ready to start our practice, okay? What does the huddle look like offensively and defensively before you step in at linebacker or quarterback? Okay. Our quarterback, you're going to call plays in the huddle. Okay. You can't just call plays. You got to understand why you're calling plays. Cause I got parents up there. Okay. They want all their kids to touch the ball. And that's my goal here. So you have to you can't just, now my son was my quarterback and he was a dynamic athlete. So I had an advantage of somebody that could distribute the ball.
Yes.
But he was not my only quarterback. I had a bunch of quarterbacks, and everybody had to do this the same way. So I started just teaching them a little bit when they're age 7 and 8. Okay, I'd let them call a play or here and there during the game, when we first started in practice, and then we did in the games. The goal was by the time we got to age 14, I would never call a play unless we got a moment where I'm like, okay, and I always had my suggestions on stuff.
Sure.
If there was something better, I mean, it wasn't always better, but if somebody was more convinced as a player than I was, then I'd let them go that route, just because I'm like, I'm not going to kill that. That's what I'm trying to breed. I'm trying to build that here. I'm not going to punish it. I would share with them why I didn't like it to see if they might change it. And I can't think of any time they changed it,
Right.
And oftentimes it still worked, which was, I mean, that's what you want. But they took ownership of that. So we were in the end of the year defense. They called their own play, and everybody learned the game better because they're responsible for the game. They're responsible for plays and how you line up. What formations do you run? They just didn't hear and go there and execute it. They had to go through the whole processing of that. And it was a really good lesson for me in how you develop young kids, and really make them enjoy the game better,
Yes.
And if there was a kid that was overwhelmed by that, I never put them in a position where they're like, oh, I can't do this, coach. So I'll help you, and if I didn't feel like you could do it, I'll never put you in that spot. But there was not a quarterback that I didn't get to that didn't, or linebacker that didn't execute and call their own plays. And they're in charge of things, like I won't even give you a play. Look at your huddle. And, so there's that perspective. And then the other one that you mentioned, it's actually a parenting tool that I used.
Yes.
That answers your question, but I did use it as a coaching tool and even a business tool. And it's this tool. I judge my kids in the yardsticks of their years and not mine. And it gives me two things in life: patience and perspective. So as a parent, what I did is I took Find a Way has been instrumental in my life. Help me live a dream, fight to live, and a lot of in between. Okay, here's the in between. When I became a parent, Find a Way actually has helped me really self-reflect at times, take moments. And I'm like, when I had kids, I'm like, I want to break chains and end cycles. I'm not going to pass what happened to me onto my kids. And I made that commitment on that day. And then I came up with that parenting tool to help me when any situation came up to observe it in their years versus mine. Okay. So my son's 5 years old. I use this all the time because it crystallized the importance of it for me. But he came home and he wanted these Nike socks all his buddies had. So we go to Dick's, buy 3 pair, $3.99 each. They come over. He wants his buddies to come over, show socks off. They're on the basketball court, grass area. They've been there 15 minutes. I'm walking through the kitchen. I thought I'd check on him. I look out. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's got his shoes off, running around in socks I bought for $3.99. I'm like, oh my, no way. I can't get the door fast enough because all I'm thinking, I'm 35. I'm thinking grass stains, holes, $3.99. And what is this kid thinking? I grabbed that doorknob, yardsticks of his years, not mine. Patience and perspective come over me. I opened up the door and I said, hey, Bo, come over. Who's 5 years old? I said, son, why you got your shoes off, running around in socks I just bought for $3.99? He goes, oh, Dad. He goes, I'm faster without my shoes on. And I'm like, okay, I was a kid too. That's right. I try every kid's like, you take your shoes off, you think you're faster. I go, actually, take those socks off. Let me show you something. Takes these socks off. I flip them around. There's the grass stains I'm telling you about. No holes. I caught him quick enough. I said, son, you're actually sliding. You have no traction. So I know you think you're faster, but you're actually slower. If you want to be faster when you take your shoes off, take these socks I bought for $3.99 off with them. And then you're going to be faster because you won't slide on the grass. He goes, really, Dad? I said, absolutely, Bo. How Bo goes. I never see Bo again run around in socks that I just bought for $3.99. Age 5 versus 35, yardsticks of his years, not mine. Patience and perspective. So I took that into a leadership account. So sometimes as leaders, our scopes are so wide, and we may have 15 years of experience in a variety of things, and then somebody else has 15 days or 15 months. And then we see something not go right or done wrong. That 15 years of experience sometimes becomes how we go about leading or challenging, versus changing their scope. I feel like everybody has different scopes, and the more that you can look from that scope. And this is actually a two-way street too, because when my kids got older, I shared with them how I went about it, and I asked them to judge me in the yardsticks of my years, not theirs. When I shared something with them, I go, I've done everything that you have done. I've made so many mistakes. I'm trying to help you to give you better choices and better tools so you don't make them. And I would tell you this, once I bridged that line of communication, because that's what it helped me in coaching and even leadership, is that you share that with the people too. Here's my experience. This is what I know. I'm going to really try to come at you with helping you with all I have. I will take in perspective that you only have X amount of experience. So if I fail to come at it exactly right, can you look at me in the yardsticks of my years and not yours too, that it's really coming from the right place. And that bridge of communication bridge that was built and has been built, coaching, family, and business has been instrumental in helping that there's not misunderstandings or, anger and confusion. And doesn't mean that they can't still, but less of it. And it's helped me from a leadership perspective in applying that tool, that have a better way of developing coaches,
Yes.
that might not be doing it exactly right. People in business, in our fields that they just got ahead of themselves. Okay. I don't want to take my 30 years and pound on them.
Yes.
Because they've been here for like 3 years. I've been here for 30. ESPN. I mean, these things would happen a lot in some of the shows that we do with, people that are interning or just coming in, and they're really trying to do their very best, but their scope is misunderstood. They misunderstand the whole thing because their scope is so narrow.
Yes.
And then when you widen their scope to, well, see, this is how this comes across. I know what you're thinking, but this is how it comes across. Then you get a whole different learning process between both parties.
That's so good. Now I'm lost in thought of like me as a parent with our 3 kids, right? And this is so useful for me. And you even think about how I explain things to them, right? Of keeping that in perspective for them. And you're also reminding me, because I think I was talking with a mentor of mine a couple of weeks ago, and we've got the student athlete program, right? It's teaching the mental side of the game to these high school club athletes and then collegiate athletes, right? And he made a comment which really stuck out to me. He goes, you have to keep in mind that you're basically teaching these kids to walk. And for some reason, my mind was blown at that moment, but it's exactly what you're talking about, Merril. It's like I had forgotten, right? I think a lot of coaches and sometimes leaders, we forget to put on that lens of like, wow, like when we're teaching high school kids and like college kids, I mean, those are babies. I mean, when you think about it, like they're young and they don't know this stuff. Like they're not experts in this stuff. And even if I'm a senior and I have some freshmen do something stupid, that lens of like, you know what? That person, it's not because they're a freshman, it's because they have a year of experience or maybe half a year. I've been here 4 years. So maybe I have a different lens to look through, or a coach with a player, or a leader with an employee. I love that lens, Merril. Yeah. I love that.
Well, Hope, I'd say it's helped me so much. I'm grateful that I really had that moment of time where I was like, how do I do this? How do I come up with a better way to look at my kids? And it was the most powerful tool. I share that with Noll because it's the first time I applied it and I saw the outcome. And then, when I backed up, I was like, okay, listen, a 5-year-old, does he give a rat's rump that you just played $3.99? He don't even know what $3.99 is.
Right.
Grass stains and holes. He's like, what? That's part of the deal. That's what we do. That's why I run around. Okay, that's like, you ain't going to change that in 5 years old.
Yes.
They see it like that. Well, is that a great time for me to give him a monetary lesson about finances and clothes and don't ruin things and how disrespect? No. Right. And I don't want my kids living in fear either.
Yeah.
I don't want them living in fear for they're like going, what was that? I don't even know what I guess running around socks must be a really bad deal.
Yes.
That's not the time to do that.
Yes.
It's just the time. Because guess what? He still never ran around socks again. That was the whole goal, is not to get him to run around in socks. That was the whole goal.
Yes.
And he learned a lot of things that he could be faster other ways. And I never saw that again with him. So.
And he didn't have to get on a
stopwatch. Just taught me a lot of things too.
So. Yeah. That's so good. Yeah, Dad, can we do a test trial of me with socks and without socks? And let's prove it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm surprised that actually didn't happen with Bo. Bo's one of those kids that would have done that to me. That's funny.
That's so funny. Well, I could spend hours with you. I want to be respectful of your time, Merril, and know, I just want you to know how appreciative I am of you taking this time with me, with everybody watching. And listen, I hope that everyone that is, whether you're a high school athlete watching this, a collegiate athlete watching this, a coach watching this, a business leader watching this, like everything that you shared with us, Merril, can be applied to like every area of our life, right? As parents, as just sons and daughters, like every area, based on what you said. And, there's so much I took away, but one thing is that, wanting it more Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, right? And that mentality got you to the NFL. It got you to the collegiate level. It got you to ESPN. It helped you find your way, right? And find a way along your path.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I share with people too, that mindset can be established by anybody, and it could be the difference between you and your competitor. It could be the difference between getting you to where you are and where you want to go. that mindset, because it is not about when it is convenient for you or when it works for you. That is not life. Okay. You don't get to the top by riding the elevator, but you do by taking every step and one stair at a time. And there'll never be an elevator. It's never going to be easy. And that journey is something that you embrace and you learn so much on the way. So, but don't underestimate it. It can be applied and developed by everybody and anybody towards anything.
So good. Well, Merril, maybe you can stick around for a minute when we're done here, but thank you so much again for your time. And I look forward to the next conversation.
Absolutely, Matt. Thanks for having me, brother.
Thanks.